The snow fell silently on Christmas Eve as Marcus Chen stood outside the locked doors of Chen Industries, watching security guards remove his nameplate from the building he had built from nothing. His hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the crushing weight of losing everything in a single day. The federal investigation, the frozen accounts, the board's emergency vote, the media trucks circling like vultures. It had all happened so fast. Just that morning he had been a billionaire tech CEO. Now, as darkness fell on the most sacred night of the year, he was a man with nothing but the clothes on his back and a heart full of questions about how it had all gone so terribly wrong. If you believe that kindness creates ripples we cannot see, that second chances exist even in our darkest moments, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing a time someone's kindness changed your life, share this story with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind us of the good that still exists in this world. Marcus walked through the Christmas-lit streets of Seattle like a ghost, invisible among the rushing crowds carrying bags of presents and joy. His phone, the device that once connected him to presidents and prime ministers, now remained silent. Every call went to voicemail. Every text message turned blue but received no response. His ex-wife had already released a statement through her attorney, distancing herself from the scandal. His adult children, raised in private schools and summer homes, had changed their social media profiles to their mother's maiden name. Even his closest friends, the ones he had vacationed with on private islands, had vanished like smoke when the news broke. The investigation claimed he had engaged in securities fraud, insider trading, and embezzlement, crimes he absolutely had not committed. But the evidence, manufactured by someone he trusted, looked damning. His CFO had disappeared. His lawyers had dropped him when his accounts froze. And now, on Christmas Eve, Marcus Chen learned the cruelest lesson life could teach. When you fall from great heights, you fall alone. He found himself walking without direction, his expensive shoes soaked through with slush, his cashmere coat inadequate against the biting wind. The streets grew less familiar, the neighborhoods less polished. He passed shelters with lines of people waiting for warm meals, churches with lights glowing in windows, apartment buildings with wreaths on every door. Somewhere in his wandering, he realized his feet had carried him to a part of the city he had not visited in 7 years, the neighborhood where Chen Industries had once planned a massive development project that would have displaced hundreds of families. He stopped on a corner and remembered. It had been a cold morning in February 7 years ago, when Marcus had stood in a conference room reviewing architectural plans for luxury condos that would replace an entire block of affordable housing. The profit projections were astronomical. The board was enthusiastic. Everything made perfect business sense. Then a single mother named Rosa Martinez had somehow gotten past security and walked into that conference room with her 3 children. She had not yelled or made threats. She had simply stood there with quiet dignity and told him the truth. This building project would destroy not just homes, but a community. She told him about the elderly woman on the 3rd floor who had lived there for 40 years, about the young couple saving for their wedding while working 3 jobs between them, about her own children who walked to school with friends they had known since kindergarten. She had looked at him with eyes that saw not a CEO but a human being, and asked him a question that changed everything. When you were young and struggling, did someone show you mercy? And if they did, would you honor that mercy by showing it to others? Marcus had asked his security to escort her out, but her words had haunted him. That night, he had driven through the neighborhood himself, seen the murals painted by children, the community garden tended by volunteers, the small businesses that served as gathering places. He had remembered his own childhood, raised by a single mother in a small apartment not unlike these. How a landlord had once given them 3 extra months to catch up on rent after his mother lost her job. He had remembered the teacher who bought him a winter coat, the neighbor who shared meals, the strangers who had shown kindness when kindness was all they had to give. 2 weeks later, Marcus had shocked his board by canceling the development project entirely. Instead, he had invested company money in renovating the existing buildings, creating a community center and funding scholarships for local children. The decision had cost Chen Industries millions in potential profit. His board had been furious. Some shareholders had sued, but Marcus had slept better than he had in years. Now standing on that same corner 7 years later with nothing to his name, Marcus wondered if that decision had somehow contributed to his downfall. Perhaps his CFO's betrayal had been brewing since then. Perhaps his willingness to choose people over profit had made him appear weak, vulnerable, exploitable. The thought made him laugh bitterly into the winter night. He had done one purely good thing in his career, and maybe it had planted the seeds of his destruction. He was so lost in these dark thoughts that he did not notice the small crowd gathering around him until someone touched his shoulder. Marcus turned to find Rosa Martinez standing before him, older now but unmistakable, her eyes still holding that same quiet strength. Behind her stood dozens of people from the neighborhood, the elderly woman from the third floor using a walker, the young couple now holding a toddler, Rosa's children now teenagers, and so many others. They formed a circle around him in the air, falling snow, and Marcus realized with shock that they knew exactly who he was and what had happened to him. Rosa spoke first, her voice steady and warm. "Mr. Chen, we heard about your troubles. We don't know what's true and what's not in the news, but we know what's true in our hearts. 7 years ago, you chose to see us as human beings instead of obstacles to profit. You saved our homes when you could have destroyed them. You invested in our children when you could have lined your pockets. You showed us that some people in power still have souls." She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "Everyone here has contributed what they could. It's not much, just a few $1,000s. But it's enough for a hotel room for a few weeks, some food, and maybe a phone card so you can make some calls. More importantly, we called every media contact we could find. We told them our story. We told them about the CEO who gave up millions to protect a community. Several reporters want to interview us all tomorrow. The truth about your character needs to be heard." Marcus stared at the envelope, then at the faces surrounding him, and something inside him broke open. These were people who lived paycheck to paycheck, who counted pennies and clipped coupons, who knew what it meant to struggle every single day. And they were offering him their hard-earned money, their time, their voices. The elderly woman stepped forward and pressed a wrapped plate into his hands. "Tamales," she said simply. "No one should be alone on Christmas Eve." The young couple offered him a handmade card from their toddler with crayon drawings of angels. Rosa's teenage daughter, now in college on one of the scholarships his company had funded, handed him a USB drive. "I documented everything about the community center project for my journalism class," she explained. "Every financial record, every decision you made, every transparent choice. It shows the kind of leader you really are. Maybe it can help prove your character to the investigators." One by one, they came forward with small offerings. A warm scarf, a grocery gift card, phone numbers of lawyers who had agreed to consult for free, words of encouragement, prayers and promises to stand beside him. Marcus Chen, the man who had commanded boardrooms and signed billion-dollar deals, stood in the snow surrounded by people who had nothing compared to what he once possessed, yet who had everything that truly mattered. They had community, compassion, and the understanding that we are all just humans helping each other survive this difficult world. The tears he had held back all day finally came, streaming down his face as he clutched the plate of tamales and whispered thank you over and over until the words lost meaning and became simply sounds of gratitude. Rosa took his hand, weathered and strong. "You helped us when you had everything. We help you now that you have nothing. This is how the world is supposed to work, Mr. Chen. This is what it means to be human." She smiled. "Come, we have a spot for you at our Christmas dinner. No one eats alone tonight." As Marcus walked with them through the snowy streets toward the community center he had helped build, he realized something profound. He had lost his company, his fortune, his reputation, and his social circle. But standing here with these beautiful souls who saw him not as a fallen CEO, but as a fellow human deserving of dignity and support, he understood that he had not lost everything. In fact, he was discovering what he had been missing all along during his years of wealth and power. True connection, authentic kindness, and the breathtaking beauty of people who give from their poverty, because they remember what it means to need mercy. The investigation would continue. The legal battles would be long. But tonight, on Christmas Eve, surrounded by people who proved that goodness exists in the darkest moments, Marcus Chen found something more valuable than everything he had lost. He found hope. He found family. And he found the strength to believe that this was not the end of his story, but rather the beginning of understanding what his story had always been meant to be about.